Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Joellen Pozner, Associate Professor at Santa Clara University. Joellen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, there was big news that you just told me broke the internet, so I want to get your take on it, and that is Rupert Murdoch is stepping down as chairman of Fox Corporation and News Corporation effective in mid-November. First, let's talk about what are the short-term and long-term impacts that this news has on those organizations.
It's going to be a really interesting ride. This isn't entirely unexpected. I mean, Rupert Murdoch is 92, and nobody lives forever, and most 92-year-olds are not running major corporations. And he's been grooming his son Lachlan to be his successor for a number of years now. So this, I think, is expected or was expected to be coming down the pike at some point. The immediate impact on the organizations in question, I think, won't be tremendously significant. One of the reasons that Murdoch chose Lachlan as opposed to James, his younger brother, was because he and Lachlan share a worldview and a perspective on how these organizations should be run and what the Fox News philosophy is. And they've pretty much been in step with each other in the last few years since he was named successor officially. So I would imagine that he'll continue along those lines, especially because Rupert Murdoch has said that he's still going to be involved in the day-to-day runnings of the organization and isn't stepping down entirely from organizational life. But the question of how this will play out in the longer term, I think, is really interesting. It's unclear whether Lachlan really deeply shares his father's worldview or if that was a coping technique or a management strategy to secure this position. Echoes of HBO's Succession kind of here. What's inside somebody's heart versus what they need to say to toe the line in the short term. And I have no, reason to suspect one way or the other, but it'll be interesting to watch that unfold. There are also potential challenges as this unfolds with the other three siblings, the other three Murdoch children, who will have voting rights that are equal to Lachlan's once their father passes away, which, again, he's 92 years old. I wish him long life, but, one doesn't live forever. And that might really create some upheaval. We know that James Murdoch has very different views from his brother and his father, or at least has expressed that publicly. And it's entirely possible that things become a little bit more tumultuous. And I think that's not entirely unexpected when we have family succession, and especially after such a long tenure, and with children who are of such a different generation from their father.
Let's talk about where Fox News specifically would be going. Obviously, the network is conservative. Like you said, Lachlan does seem to share those conservative views with his father, but the other three children who will retain voting power are reportedly more liberal. Do you see Fox going down one way or the other, or just par for the course?
Again, I think it's hard to say just now because we need to see, how those opinions get expressed and how they evolve, the opinions of the Murdoch children over time. And it might turn out that Lachlan surprises us and he's a little bit less conservative than he's purported to be. I also suspect that he's a little bit more in touch with the market and has his finger on the pulse of public sentiment, and that if the political tides turn, he might be more willing to follow them.
I do want to talk about the market a little bit. This is some reporting from Forbes. Fox Corporation, the parent company of Fox News and the Fox Broadcasting Network, shot up nearly 3.5% on the day Thursday to just over $32 per share, marking the company's biggest single-day increase by percentage on Wall Street in 6 weeks. Wall Street Journal and New York Post parent company News Corp stock jumped nearly 2.5% to more than $20 per share, the company's biggest single-day increase in just over a month. What do you make of these surges? What do you think this news specifically indicates?
Markets love change. I know that sounds surprising because there are lots of examples of markets not loving change. But in terms of executive succession, especially for somebody who's as divisive, as polarizing a figure as Rupert Murdoch, especially for an organization that's been run for as long as it has by the same person, change is really good. And we've seen Fox News's fortunes rise and fall over the last several years with changes in public sentiment and political opinion. And I think Fox has been seen for, at least a couple of years as on the wane, on the decline. And so this, change can be read as a harbinger of things to come by markets. I think this is really hopeful, wishful thinking on the part of investors who see promise that might or might not turn out. But what it means is that markets expect for Laughlin to make some changes that, right the ship at Fox and stop its decline. And that's being incorporated into the stock price now.
In the press release breaking the news, the words stepping down were used, and he will be appointed chair emeritus of both Fox and News Corp. A word that was not in there was retire or retiring, which is surprising considering his age of 92. So will he have any real power? Does that title mean anything? Does stepping down versus retiring raise any flags for you?
It's not entirely surprising. Somebody who built a company over the course of 70 plus years is not going to step away quietly. We've seen that Rupert Murdoch has really been holding on for everything he can. And that's been rewarded in a certain sense over the years. I suspect that this is the beginning of a gradual tapering, but it's to be seen. Somebody who has, had his hands firmly on the wheel for this long might really have a hard time stepping aside. So it might be that this is more ceremonial. It might be that this is a move intended to cover changes that are necessary because of changes in Murdoch's life. We know he spends most of his time in Montana now. He's not often in the offices of Fox News. So, maybe there are things going on that might have more attention if he was the day-to-day face of the organization. But I suspect as long as he's healthy and kind of cognitively capable, he'll be involved in decision-making.
Fox is a ratings juggernaut, but they've suffered a series of bad press over the year, most notably that $800 million about lawsuit with Dominion Voting. Do you think that this news that Rupert Murdoch is stepping down, is this good press, bad press, neutral press?
I think it's good press. It's only good press, especially when there's been an organizational crisis. A change in leadership is often really welcome by markets because it's a signal that things might change. Now, whether they do or not is to be revealed. But we saw the stock price bump as a result of that wishful thinking that things might change under Laughlin, and that often does follow that kind of reaction, and then market reaction often does follow big organizational disasters, which I think we can call that lawsuit.
I know that we said the future remains to be unseen. It's a little unclear, but maybe as people, as viewers or just as Americans, what should we look out for and what should staffers look out for?
I think for us, we're probably not, kind of watchers on the sidelines, we're probably not going to see major changes right away. I would think that Rupert Murdoch would need to step down a little bit more formally and really step aside before Laughlin was able to make changes, if he has any planned. Again, we don't know what's going on inside of his heart and mind. But I would imagine that those would require a little bit less presence from Rupert. Otherwise, he wouldn't be handing things over. In terms of internal staffing and employee interactions and experience, I also suspect that things would change only slowly and that this is not going to be a huge overhaul. Laughlin has been very present in the business for the past several years since he was named the successor. And again, he and his father have been of like minds on lots of issues. If there have been changes over the last couple of years, there have been obviously staffing changes on the headline marquee staff, right, the broadcast staff. But for the folks who are not on camera, I suspect that changes have been made slowly over the last couple of years, and I would anticipate that those continue apace. There might be a slight acceleration, but I wouldn't expect a lot of internal shakeup, at least not immediately.
This news broke as I was getting into work today, and if you follow media at all, this has been the top story, obviously, all day. Do you think there has been anything missing from the conversation so far?
It's an interesting time in the political cycle for this news to come, and I wonder what the impact of this change will have on the way that Fox interacts with the political election cycle in the United States. I think they're closer media watchers who are going to be able to pick that apart, and that's something that we're going to need a little bit of time to unpack. But I'm curious to see whether there's a kind of short-term impact of this change on the way that Fox News interacts with the U.S. political system.
Joellen Pozner, thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.